Coming up on the Casual F1 podcast.
And so he's a rapid driver, a very Gilles Villeneuve-esque driver. And Gilles Villeneuve was a dude who would hustle a car, make it dance and work with him. You could do that in a Formula 2 car, and you'll see some laps in F2 where it was very damn ragged, but he was getting the most out of it. And he was with Prema, the Ferrari links, just everything I think just worked in his favor to get him to this moment. Yeah, so it was just sort of the perfect storm almost, and it's just like that. If I become a billionaire, I'm buying that Formula 2 car of his, and I'm just just putting it on my wall. It's just like the most iconic F2 car for me.
Hey there, welcome to the third edition of the Casual F1 podcast. This time around we have, do I even need to give him an introduction? Well, this time around we have Josh, the OG, in my view, the OG of the F1 YouTube space. Someone who started making videos something around 2018, 2019, and someone who I have been following primarily because of the quality of the videos that he puts out. The man has around 360,000 subscribers right now, and something that made me pursue Josh when it came to this particular topic was the fact that, whatever I've seen of him, I do feel he's passionate about the sport. And for this topic, I wanted someone who was very passionate. Now, coming to the topic, this time around, the topic that we both, Josh and I, will be talking about is both of us will be picking our most memorable race of each driver on the current grid. Now, the reason why I went for something like this was, primarily because what I've noticed in the last few years is, the hate that almost every driver on the current grid gets, it's a bit much. And in a world of social media where arguably the negativity is starting to take over far too much, I felt that maybe it was about time that someone posted something which was arguably a bit positive, arguably a bit more on the side where we appreciate and praise these drivers, because let's be honest, these are arguably the 20 best drivers in the entire world. How true is it? Well, of course, there are a few disputable cases, but I guess it's a bit of a fair assertion. Now, coming to the podcast, I'll release it in two parts. The first part will have 5 teams, and the next will have the rest. Which teams will it be? I'll mention it in the description. So sit back, enjoy, and keep an eye on some very interesting anecdotes from Josh. I hope you guys have a good time. Do leave a like, subscribe, comment on the video, help increase the reach of the channel. And nothing more to say from my side other than let's get to the podcast. Hi guys, welcome to the third edition of the Casual F1 podcast. And this time around we have Josh Ravel with us. Well, I don't think he needs an introduction, but still, Josh, I'll let you take the floor. Welcome to the third edition of the Casual F1 podcast. First of all, thanks for being here. Can you share a few words with us, with my followers and anyone else who discovers this video? And do tell us a bit about your journey and something for the fellow F1 creators who are just starting up.
Thanks for having me on, man. For those out there that perhaps don't know me, lucky you. I'm a F1 YouTuber producing sort of, I guess, an informative but sort of casual, I guess, is one way you can call them, videos just on everything, not just in Formula 1, but motorsport as a whole. Tackling the pertinent issues. Not afraid to delve into any topic, so long as it's not AD21. But I'm all about the sport, love it to death. Got infinite sort of residual knowledge that I just want to get off my chest and present in a really munted format. And apparently it's quite popular. I think it's at 361k subscribers now, so not too bad.
Impressive. Yeah, and that is actually quite impressive. So the reason why we have Josh here is because we've seen a lot of, the thing is, F1 Twitter is a huge thing right now, and even the F1 social media in general. But the thing is, we've seen quite a few fans picking on drivers, finding faults, criticizing them, maybe abusing them. So yes, when that happens, I think it's always nice to just look back and see what are some of the more memorable drives some drives that makes these drivers special. And that's why I had Josh in here, because someone with that depth of knowledge is someone you should have on someone you should actually ask to come over and share that knowledge. And what we are trying to do here is we're trying to go through the 20 drivers on the Formula 1 grid. What we'll try to do here is look at the most memorable race for each of these drivers, and what makes that particular drive special. So yes, Josh. First of all, Josh, what's your view on the whole thing that we have right now? Where, to an extent, the driver criticism, as in, I don't know if we'll call it criticism or driver hate, that has been at an all-time high, and probably it has spiked up a bit since 2021. So what's your take on that? Because at the end of the day, these are probably the 20 best drivers, although the IndyCar drivers might dispute that. But these are probably the 20 best drivers that we have in the world. And when you have such elite presence in your sport, but they get criticized or hated on, what's your take on that? Why there has been an upsurge of the whole criticism thing in the last few years?
Yeah, I guess, I don't know, people want to feel like they know stuff, I guess is one way to put it. It's just this weird complex. Now, I know people say, oh, you criticize drivers, Josh. It's like, yes, sometimes they need that. Sometimes there are some people that need to be told, you shouldn't be in F1 or Formula 2 or whatever. If you want to go off and do something else,
Mahavir Raghunathan.
But I won't blanketly say that a driver's fine just so their feelings don't get hurt. But there are some circumstances where it's ridiculous. We'll see people say, Lewis only wins because of the car and stuff like that. And, the last 2 years prove that you can't win when it's not, the best car. It's just like, no one can. Like, they'll just, to fit their own agendas, to make themselves seem as though they know something by just going against the grain. It's just like, sometimes going against the grain, maybe you're right, but sometimes you're wrong. Like, I don't know. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, but obviously, as you said, the abuse, I guess the booing to me, I'm just like, if you got time in your life to do that, be my guest. But it is like the proper abuse, the death threats, and flipping off and stuff like that. It's just like, come on, you really have no other thing you could possibly do in your life other than just be like that. Come on, don't be a martyrs, people. It just sucks definitely to have that going on, but I guess it's the world we live in, because it's kind of a lot of sports, I guess, do exactly the same thing.
True.
Don't make it right, though.
True. I think there are quite a few references of football in this case. I'm not a huge fan of football in that sense, because again, the time zone thing. I hate following sports that are at 1 or 2 a.m. in my time zone. So I tend not to follow them.
Well,
but I've seen quite a few references.
We're not that big on football either, because we're only good at one sport.
Oh, come on. You're good in cricket. Look, you're from New Zealand, I'm from India. You guys are good in cricket, and to be honest, I hate you for that.
We're okay in cricket right up until we get to a super over and we send someone out with 7 toes to be our opening batsman. But,
Hey, Martin Guptill is good. Still, I still hate you guys for beating us twice in the semifinals. That still hurts.
Oh, dear. Oh, man. I can get the point.
Yeah.
Sure.
In India, the thing is, the notion is Kiwis are super nice, but they keep fucking beating us in cricket every time. So that is something that you can't even hate them, but then stop beating us. So yes. Coming back to the whole thing. The main reason why I wanted to do this, Josh, was because at the end of the day, there needs to be a certain level of positivity in our sport as well. And that is where we talking about some of the best moments of these drivers is where it all comes, where this whole thing comes in. And that is what we'll be doing in this podcast today. We'll be going through the 20 drivers one by one, and we'll be looking at one most memorable race for each of us. Why that is the case, we'll just, we'll discuss that. The whole thing is keeping things positive, something we don't tend to see quite often. And Let's start with that. I hope you're ready. I hope you have your list ready, Josh.
Uh, yeah, list. No, I should be fine. My memory's not quite
I
as
hope
bad as what it perhaps should be.
we're still young. Yeah. Okay. So first of all, we'll start with Williams. So for Williams, first of all, we have Alex Albon. Josh, I'll let you take the floor on this first. What's the most memorable race for Alex that that stands out for you? It can be both Formula One
Uh,
or F2. It's you're entirely free to pick anything.
but Formula One, Formula Two, the most memorable race for Albon. Like for good reasons or bad reasons. Like there's definitely stuff either or. But when it comes to
The good
good stuff,
ones.
I would say in Formula One there hasn't really. I mean, obviously Melbourne was fantastic last year, where he went 3 billion
Oh yeah.
miles on those tires. When it comes to the more memorable one, for some reason the one that stands out is Formula Two Baku. For some reason, he just cinched it
Oh
that weekend,
yes.
and that was just a fantastic performance outright, and one that sort of cemented his ability, behind the wheel. Something that for some reason people just completely forgot about in his first 2 years at Red Bull. And it's just like you look at his past results. He's a fast cookie. He proved that in that race, and he then proved it when he went over to Williams. So yeah, but that was a big catalyst, and I think it was one of the drives as well that made Helmut Marko go, all right, maybe we want to bring him back on board Red Bull.
Just for the viewers, which year was it? It's 2017, if I'm not wrong.
2018, I think it was. Was it 2018?
Baku 2017. I think it was the year Russell won. Russell won in 2018, I think.
It's
Yeah. Russell won in
oh my
2018.
goodness! Like
17 was Leclerc.
years are blending together for me badly nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't
it's
blame
just,
you.
well, where are you?
Yes, it's probably 17 or 18, one of
Yeah.
those. I think 17 was no 17 was Baku, and I remember Leclerc had a tragic weekend that time. He won both the races, if I'm not wrong. I think it should be
Yeah,
2018.
yeah.
Russell was on the grid. So yes, yeah.
Hmm.
In my view, for Alex Albon, I think for me it comes down to what he did in his very first race with Red Bull. I think it was 2019 Spa. He started from the back of the grid, and after all the mess that had happened with Gasly, Albon was able to make his way through the field. Because let's be fair, at that point in time there was this notion that the Red Bull is undrivable and Max was doing brilliant things with it. To an extent it was true, but still Albon making his way through the field, and I think he finished P4 or P5, something like that, in that race. And doing that in his very first race with Red Bull, I think that also cemented his spot for at least a year. Fortunately for him, at least he got a
Yeah.
year.
Actually,
But it also showed that the
I don't know
driver had something.
why. I don't know why this completely skipped my mind, but I may actually change my vote here. 2019 Interlagos. And I
Oh,
know that the outcome wasn't
oh yes,
favourable, but it
yeah,
was just watching what he did in that race. Like his pass on Seb through the center S. It's just like,
exactly.
wow, that
Wow,
is
that was stunning.
ballsy. And he executed it well. And so it was great. And if he didn't have that tango with Lewis, it would have been an absolute podium for sure. It was just in the
Yeah, yeah, I
results
do feel
didn't
bad for
favour
him
him
in
that
that
day,
case.
but yeah,
I think Gasly ended up on the podium.
yeah,
It was Gasly, Sainz, and Max, I think. Yeah, and that was an eventful race. But yes, he was very impressive, and yeah, I agree. It was an overtake after the restart, I think, isn't it? After the safety car restart, and he
yeah,
pulled it through the
yeah.
Senna's.
Went around the
It was
outside.
amazing. Yeah, that was amazing. And yes, yeah, you're right. But for me, honestly, until that time, I think I was a bit skeptic when it came to Albon, because in both Formula 2 seasons that I'd seen him get a bit outclassed by Leclerc first in 17, and then when Norris and Russell came in and they were rookies and they beat him comfortably. I mean, it was a bit touch and go between Albon and Norris, but still, what I could glean out of it was that probably Albon was not at that level, and he maybe isn't. And I was not too stoked about him getting promoted mid-season. But then I saw his race in Spa in 2019, and that kind of proved why Red Bull had that kind of faith in him. So yeah, that's why, to be honest, that's why that race kind of sticks out for me. I mean, he's still, for me, what he did what he's doing in Williams is not a surprise because I always rated him very highly. It was just that Red Bull, the environment, and maybe his expectations were just too high, and that's why it didn't really work out. So yes, that was with Alex Albon. For Logan Sargent, something that stands out for you. What's your take on him?
It's difficult, obviously, to judge in F1 right now because he's still greener than goose shit. Like he's, and I don't think he's going to come right until about Silverstone because Silverstone always seems to be, Silverstone always seems to be the round where he comes alive in whatever series he does. In F3 and F2, and his first years there, he got pole position and won quite comfortably. So seems to be a happy hunting ground. And it seems about right for him to find his feet there in an F1 car. So expect something there. His best drive for probably is F2 last year. Jeez, what race to pick out of that bunch? I mean, Paul Ricard did stand out.
To be honest, I went with the Silverstone race. Yeah, for me, it was the Silverstone race only last season. I think that was the race where I actually noticed how good he was because he dominated that weekend, right? He scored. He got pole. I think he got it from Westy, if I'm not wrong, and he ended up winning. But the thing was, the entire weekend was very dominant. And especially when you have Liam Lawson as a teammate, someone who might be replacing Nick DeVries later in the season or next year. And he was able to hold his own and did quite well. So yeah, for me, at least for me, the Silverstone 2022, his feature race win, I think that stands out. Yeah. I think you have a similar opinion, I guess, in this case. Yeah. Okay. So Williams is done. Now moving to Haas, and I think this one is going to be a bit interesting. At Haas, first of all, for Kevin Magnussen, which one race stands out for you?
His debut F1 race with McLaren, where not just a podium, but beating Jensen. It was a hell of a debut. Never quite got to that level again, but, he has been muzzled by the car a little bit. The only thing that got sort of close was his pole position last year. That was a great moment. Brought everyone in unity in the paddock. McLaren, Melbourne, 2014 still stands out as that race where it was just like, wow, okay, that's impressive.
True. Especially after he replaced Sergio Perez at that time. I mean, not many thought that it was a good move because Perez was just dropped unceremoniously. I think it was a bit of a political move as well, right? Whitmarsh was losing out against Dennis. Ron was taking over, and Ron wanted his guy in the team, and somehow the whole maneuver happened. But yeah, ultimately I think the first race it did surprise me. I didn't expect him to be this good, but yeah, that the whole weekend was a bit different because we were coming off the hangover of Seb winning 9 races. Then we come to Melbourne, and Seb retires. Then Lewis retires. Rosberg goes on to win. Then Bottas emerges out of nowhere. I mean, there were so many different things that no one would have imagined at that point. And even I think Ricciardo had a podium, but then it was taken away from him. So yes, quite a few new stars emerged in that particular race. Yeah, something fuel flow was a bit higher or something like that. Yeah. For In my case, actually, for Magnussen, the race that stands out is the one in Spa in that particular year only, in 2014 Spa. And the reason why it stands out
Why am I not
was
remembering
it's
that
the
race?
last 10. It was the race where Lewis and Rosberg collided,
Yeah, at Lecon.
and
Yeah, I
Ricciardo
remember
won.
that.
Yeah.
Mm.
And why the main thing that stands out for me was the last 10 lap battle where Magnussen was defending against Alonso and Button, and he and the whole sequence of racing where one driver gets the jump on the other. I think there was another there was a gaggle of four cars that were competing against each other, and then finally, even out of all of that, in the last 10 laps, battling with two world champions, Magnussen coming out on top. And yeah, there were quite a few Magnussen kind of moves where he pushed Alonso onto the grass and things like that. But doing that in his debut season and doing it so well, I mean, that was amazing. It was amazing watch. I mean, I still do when when I'm just cycling or something, I'll just put the race on, and the last 15 laps, I tend to watch it again and again because the whole sequence is so amazing. And Alonso is frustrated like anything on the team radio. So yes, that stands out for me. Coming to Nico Hulkenberg. Now, in case of Nico Hulkenberg, which particular race would you pick as the most memorable one?
Memorable. Uh, I'm not gonna lie. Whenever I think of Nico, it always winds back to 2019 Hockenheim. You're just watching the slow,
Oh, yeah.
gradual sort of approach to the wall. It's just imprinted in my mind every time. It's just like,
He was P4 at that point. P4, P
yeah,
second or something like
he
that.
was looking good for good
P4.
results.
Yeah.
I thought it was P2. I'm not sure. Like he was in prime position anyway, and seeing who got podiums and
Yeah.
where they were at the time, it's just like wow, Hulk could have been there, gotten his maiden podium
Yeah.
for sure. Um, in terms of the memorable race. I can't remember what exact track it was, but there was a scintillating drive that he put in an A1 GP with Team Germany, and that year where he won the championship, he was just ultra dominant, and he's sort of like that's still a really memorable sort of combination. The Team Germany colors with Nico Hulkenberg at the helm, and
Yeah.
there really just wasn't any equal at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know it's not a race, but the whole damn season's memorable to me because when it comes to A1 GP, that was the car that I would say is the most memorable of all the ones that won the championship.
For me as well, it was in A1 GP only that Hulkenberg caught my eye. Then he moved to GP2 and 1, and then he came to Formula 1. But the first time I noticed Hulkenberg was at that time. And I think he was 17 or something, very young, and he was dominating the entire field. And the field had some pretty impressive drivers as well. I think Max's father was racing as well. Jos Verstappen was in A1 GP at that time, if I'm not wrong, for Netherlands. Maybe a few others.
Yeah.
There was Nicolas Lapierre. There were quite Neil Yanni was there, Alex Young. So still quite a few experienced drivers. Maybe not. Maybe the F1 discards and some from supercars. But he did a very impressive job at that point. Now, for me, the one now the most obvious one is the Brazil 2012, where again he just if he had not made
Oh,
that
yes,
mistake, he
yeah,
would have probably
absolutely.
probably won the race. Yeah, that is one of the more obvious ones. But other than that, there were still quite a few stellar drives that actually helped Nico make his name at that stage. The one that stands out is the 2013 Korea, the Korean Grand Prix in 2013, where he was driving the Saber and he held off Lewis, Alonso. I think there was Grosjean as well. These three drivers for almost the entirety of the race and finished P4. And he did all of that in Saber. I think there were quite a few scintillating
Yeah.
drives from him in that
Yeah,
particular season,
holding
but
off all
this
those
was the
people in a
particular race that
2013
I remember
Sauber.
vividly. No, not many people do. There was also this thing, no? I think he qualified on front row in Saber in Monza. Was it the front row or P3, something like that? He out-qualified both Alonso and Massa. I mean, that was the kind of performances that he was putting in. And I remember that race, the Korean race, very vividly, because it was in that particular race where Brundle said, why is Nico Hülkenberg not driving a race-winning car? And he's still not done it. And it's been 10 years. But yeah, things didn't work out for him. Okay. So now moving from Haas to McLaren. So first of all, when it comes to McLaren, talking about Lando Norris, which particular race would you pick as the one which is kind of memorable in your case?
2020 Austria, I think, was the first podium, and
even I picked the same one.
Yeah, it was just the jubilation at the end of it, and sort of knowing that he had to get that within that 5 seconds and getting it at the end. It was just clutch. So yeah, definitely in Formula One, that's sort of the one where, at least when it comes to the happy memories, that was that was scintillating. That was great stuff for him. It was a groundbreaking moment too.
And he got a fastest lap on the last lap, driving a McLaren. And the thing is, what stands out for me was, I mean, he was being chased down by Lewis. Not chased down. I think he had to maintain a 5-second gap, and doing it in a McLaren, especially when you are competing against a Mercedes, and that to a 2020 Mercedes, it was pretty. I think that was one race where I kind of saw that, okay, Lando has made all the adjustments that he needed to, because in F2 he was not the complete product. He got a bit dominated by Russell after mid-season, where Russell just took over and went with the championship. But by this time, Norris had somewhat discovered what he needed to do, how he had to balance everything, and it was very impressive. I think that race he kind of showed that the kind of talent that he had, and kind of proved himself to McLaren as well. So yes, that is the one that stands out for me. Now talking about the other McLaren driver, Oscar Piastri, which one would you pick? Which race? Which particular race?
Oscar Piastri's most memorable race for me would be the second sprint race, Bahrain 2021 for F2. That last lap battle between, was it? I don't know, Lundgaard was one. Lundgaard, I think, was one of them.
Lundgaard, yeah.
It was Joe the other one. I think it was. Might have been him. I'm not sure. But anyway, he outfoxed both of them.
Yeah, I think it was Schwartzman.
I don't think it was Bobby.
2 red cars and 2 Alpine cars.
I think Bobby was a bit far behind. I'm gonna have to get this up again. This is great stuff from me. Yeah, it was Joe. I did remember that right. Yeah, it was like just completely outfoxed both of them on the last lap to take the win. It was just like, oh, wow, okay, this guy can drive for sure. So yeah, and obviously, like Sargent, he's only about 5 odd races into his F1 career. I'm not gonna know whether or not he's any good right now.
Yeah.
He's had a lot of training to get up to this point. A lot of time spent in last year, and not last year's, but 2021 Alpine F1 car, and they took him to every circuit to drive. So he had a bit of training, but he's still not quite all there. So got to give him time. I think Piastri is going to come into his own about. Really, I think
mid-season.
This time
we'll have to wait till mid-season.
Yeah. If
you're giving him this much time.
Yeah, well, when it comes to him truly being broken into Formula One, you got to give him that first year. If you do get a miracle in your first year, then fantastic. But just with the restrictive testing and everything, you can't expect miracles anymore. You're not going to get the same amount of testing that Lewis got, before his F1 debut, where they gave him, oh my God, basically 300 trips around the moon worth of testing mileage. So he was totally ready when he came into Formula One. His drives were all that. That was all him. But it was just a case of he was ready for that. None of these rookies are nowadays because, you can't test for more than 3 minutes. So yeah, with Piastri and
Exactly.
Formula One, I'm not expecting a hell of a lot in this first year, but we do have F2, and that second sprint race
No,
was,
the race that you
just
talked about, it
perfectly
was
managed.
very impressive. Yeah, I think Lungard spun and Joe. I remember Lungard spinning in that the sequence after T1. That is the particular part that I remember where it was so razor thin. It was all on the knife's edge, and he was still. And Oscar being a rookie, I think Lungard already had an year in F2, and still Oscar being able to navigate through it. It was even in my case, I think it stands out for me as well. Now, for me, the particular race that I think was very impressive. I think I am actually going with the one in Formula One only. The race in Jeddah, because that qualifying lap where he was able to get into Q3, and I think he qualified P7 or P8. I mean, that was for me a moment similar to the kind of moments that Max had earlier in his early days in Toro Rosso, where he just showed that the
Yeah, and
talent
he
was
was up
there.
there with
The
Lando.
whole thing
Didn't he,
needs to
didn't he
come
beat Lando
together.
in the race?
He beat
Or did he?
Lando. He beat Lando. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was quite impressive. And that is the race where he showed that okay, the talent is there. He needs to put everything together. That is all that is left. So yeah, that's
Hmm.
one where I tend to at least for now, that is the one race that stands out for me. Now moving from McLaren to Mercedes. For Mercedes, first of all, Lewis Hamilton. Which one? I mean, you have so many things that you can pick, but which is the particular one that stands out for you?
Most memorable 2008 Silverstone. Just no equal that day. It was
Oh
just
yeah.
like one of the best wet weather drives in F1 history. I know some people will say Sao Paulo 2021, but it's like, yeah, hell of a drive. But like,
Nah,
he
no,
didn't
no,
have
no. For
DRS to
me,
help him. He didn't have that
yeah,
monster Merc engine. He didn't have. He didn't have certain things happen in that race, which I'll talk about later. But 2008, a lot more pure, a lot more everything. He was just
yeah,
so damn good that day, so damn good, and at home as well. Just great to have that crowd reaction. Um, every damn thing.
yeah.
I don't know. Personally, for me, Lewis in 2007, 2008, on those groove tires and on that McLaren, the way he would just dance with it, I miss that. That's something I do want to. I want to see these guys
Yeah,
dance with the cars like he did then.
I
I don't
agree.
know. It was something about that era Lewis where it's just like, I love this kid.
Yeah, true, true. The whole, if anyone wants to go back and watch Monaco 2007, the three qualifying sessions where no one could take their eyes off from the McLaren duo, both Alonso and Lewis, they were just scrapping the walls on almost every lap and finding tenths here and there, and no one could compete with them. True exhibition of talent at that point in time. Such stunning drives from both of them. I think Alonso won at the end of the day, but still it was so amazing to see both of them do the kind of laps that they were pulling off. Stunning. And yeah, okay, so now coming to now in my case for Lewis, I think yeah, even I love the 2008 race, but for me still the Turkish GP 2020 stands out. Now, the reason why that stands out is because, um, to be honest, until then, almost everyone, there has been this perception that it's all the car that had been developing. When it came to the Turkish GP 2020, it was obvious Mercedes was nowhere. And from that point, Lewis keeping his head down, doing the entire freaking race on a single set of tires, managing everything, and then winning, and then sealing the seventh world title with that win. I think it was so symbolic and so spectacular in every way. You can't fault anything out of out of that particular race. You know, to an extent, you can say in Silverstone, he arguably had the fastest car alongside Kimi, but still he was able to outfox him. Here, to an extent, you can't say he had the fastest car. He was, I think, P5, P6 at the start of the race. He slowly made his way through and won and ultimately sealed the seventh title. So, yes, all in all, the whole theatrics of it, for me, that race stands out, because if anyone says that Lewis can only win in a fast car, this is the race you point to and say there's no evidence that he had the fastest car and he still won.
I
Especially
mean,
the kind
like,
of
when it
horror
comes to the
race
fastest car
Bottas had where he
argument,
couldn't.
it's just like every damn driver that ever won a championship always had at least one of the fastest cars on there.
That's it.
Most of the time, it's always been the fastest
Exactly.
car. You go back to any driver that won the world championship. Very rarely, on very rare occasions, was it not the best car. And
Yeah,
if the best car
true.
was operating that time, one of their drivers would have been, the champion. But then you also have to ask the question, why is he in that car? Why is he always in the best
Exactly.
cars? It's
Yeah.
just a rancid argument that I don't know why people need to make in order to say, oh, so and so driver's better. It's just like, well, look,
Yeah.
I don't think there's a GOAT in the sport because the eras are just too different and it's very car dependent. But
Yeah.
I can make a very valid case for about half a dozen drivers, maybe a bit more, that I don't need to resort to these kinds of tactics, And the fact that people need to is just sad. I mean, a lot of the reason why I love Lewis is not because screw stats. I don't care about stats. Stats are meaningless in the sport. Like Pastor Maldonado is not a better driver than Nico freaking Hulkenberg. Yet one got a win, and the other's Nico Hulkenberg. So I push that aside.
Look,
I just look at Lewis drive,
podiums.
and
Lance
as we
Stroll is
say,
podiums right now.
yeah. I mean, the thing is, man, is that we're talking about his drives right now, and I don't even really know if when it came to Silverstone, I don't even really know if the win came too much into the equation. It was just knowing how he controlled that race. It was just like past Heikki Kovalainen, it's just like, okay,
He was 60
poof,
seconds
gone.
ahead.
He's gone. He's off into his own little world, and no one can touch him. It's just like there's a lot of times with Lewis where you watch him in the race. It's just like, how are you there? Like last year, for example, Hungary and Austin. About 3/4 of the way into the race, you see where he is. It's just like, I don't know how the hell he's there. I really don't understand how he gets there.
Yeah.
So that's the whole thing. I don't know why we have to get all territorial over the stuff. It's just beyond me. Oh, where the world, I guess. But yeah. Anyway, getting on to George.
George, yes.
For George. Ah, jeez. Well, when it comes to race, we can't say 2021 Belgium because that wasn't a race.
What a spectacular
but the
lap.
qualifying.
What a spectacular lap.
The qualifying. I mean,
Amazing.
that lap was just so special. It was
Pure
just
gold.
such a special
Pure
lap.
gold.
Yeah. If I can pass that off as the most memorable race, then I would, because I still go back to it. If we're talking about race though, proper unbridled race. Jeez, can't go past 2022 Sao Paulo because he was bee's knees that day. Not many people were going to hope to touch him. Not until half of Max's car disappeared off his left side pod, thanks to him and Lewis tangoing. But still can't take anything.
But even then,
George that weekend, he was just fantastic.
Exactly. Yeah, I think the most important part, even in my case, I think it has to be the same race. Even I picked the same one because for me, the two best drivers at that point in time on the F1 grid, I mean, one of the many best, including Leclerc and Norris, at that point was Lewis and Max. In the sprint, Russell passed Max after a spectacular wheel-to-wheel battle between both of them. Once he dispatched him off, in the race, he had the battle with Lewis as well, when the whole safety car thing happened. In the last 10 to 15 laps, something like that, where Lewis consistently challenged him. Now, of course, Lewis can come and say, I let him win, I backed off. Shut up, Lewis. You're not backing off a win, even if you have 103 of them. That is not happening. Lewis tried his all,
Nah.
and so did George, and George was able to fend him off. When you're beating two of the best drivers on the grid, I mean, that's it. That ends the debate. That race truly showed that when it comes to stitching everything together, Russell is still, he has done it. He is arguably a successor to Lewis at Mercedes, but he's one of the elite drivers on the F1 grid right now, for sure. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, now coming to Ferrari. For Ferrari, first of all, Charles Leclerc. Which particular race will you pick? You can go to Formula 2 as well. I mean, if you want.
I could. There's definitely a lot of races there, but for me, hands down, the most memorable race and one of the most memorable races in Formula One for me, full stop, 2019 Monza. Like, I mean, there is nothing like
Nothing
a
comes
Gilles,
close.
like a Gilles Villeneuve-esque Ferrari driver winning in a packed out Monza with flares and tomatoes being thrown around, just full Italianness, watching the pride of Italy win the Italian Grand Prix. Like, that overload of Italianness in Formula One is what's needed. That's why I'm so passionate about Ferrari doing well now.
Yeah.
Now that it's not being run by Italians anymore, we got reason to be optimistic.
Yeah.
And we want more things like this. It was just such a damn good drive by Charles to fend off Lewis, and then to fend off Valtteri. Although that was kind of more Valtteri not being him, but still, like, I still know the exact words from him going through the parabolica of the commentary team as you see the flares going off. Charles coming through to win. It was just such an iconic moment. I can watch that all day, every day, because that to me, I mean, yeah, you could have thrown a battle in there and all kinds of stuff, but that to me was why I love Formula One.
Exactly. I mean, for me as well, that particular race, because at that point in time, Leclerc took over from Vettel in ways not many, even I couldn't have imagined. By Spa, he dominated in Spa and won the race. But at Monza, I did feel that Mercedes, just like they did in 2018, they had that kind of edge that maybe they could be competitive. And then you saw the race where Leclerc was hounded by Lewis almost, I think, for the entire second half until until I think Lewis ran off or something happened between the two. And from
Yeah,
that
he
point,
just ran
it was
wide.
Leclerc. Yeah, something happened. And it was just, I mean, a Ferrari driver winning in Monza is something that does not happen. I mean, the last time it happened was with
No,
Alonso in
exactly.
2010, right? 2010, and now in 2019. And even in 2010, the scenes were stunning. And that kind of passion and that kind of emotion is missing. Even at the start of the season, when we saw these car launches, there was only one that stand out. It was the Ferrari car launch, and people were so passionate, so happy, and everything else was a bit corporate and dull, to be honest. Yeah, even I miss Ferrari being at the top, at least being competitive. They really should get their shit together. But yeah, that is Ferrari for us. By the way, one question, maybe it's something unrelated. You follow Formula 2 as well, right?
Oh yeah, of course. Well, I mean, like,
So which
one of my most
particular
famous
championship
videos
campaign would
is
you?
on a certain Formula 2 driver.
I know. Yeah, I know. Yeah, he ruined it for all of us. Yeah. So when it comes to Formula 2 championship campaigns, which particular one would you call the most dominant and the most impressive? Either of the two. Which is the particular one that stands out for you out of all the ones that you've seen?
Going through it. So it started in 2005. Under
Yeah.
GP2. Geez, it would either be between Lewis in 2006 or Charles in 2017. Charles 2017 for me is the most memorable, easily. because
Yeah.
I actually got to watch the full season. With Lewis, we got no coverage in New
Yeah,
Zealand
we couldn't
of
really
that
follow
stuff.
it.
No, so
Yeah.
like the only thing that we did know was viral videos of him just siding through the field in Istanbul. But with in 2017, at that stage, I was in full swing when it came to actually keeping up to date with everything, you know, F1 and
Yeah.
F2 related. Like I was up for everything. Whereas back in 06, never mind staying up for it, we just didn't get coverage here.
Yeah.
So the what was I going to say? Yeah, I would say for me, 2017 was just as an overall package.
Next level.
It's definitely something that I would say was, yeah. I mean, it is difficult. I probably do need to actually sit down and watch every single race in 2006 to get a grasp of what Lewis was like that season. For me, the big
Yeah.
thing was really about Istanbul, and that was just a stonks drive. But Charles in 2017, he was just on a totally different level. There's no one there.
Exactly.
And just
I mean,
buried
that is
Antonio
something that I
Fuoco at
still look
Prema.
for, you know.
So, yeah.
Oh, everyone.
Yeah.
Not only Fuoco. It was. I still can't. I have not seen a season like that again. And that was a particular season where you can just say that, okay, Leclerc is almost 3 to 4 tenths quicker than every other driver on that grid. And when a driver is able to pull off something like that, no driver has been able to do something like that even now until since then. Oscar's season was impressive on that front. I mean, he scored a lot of pole positions and he tended to dominate from that part. But Charles was
Yeah, there was
dominating
something
even in the
about,
sprints where he was starting way far back. So impressive. I still don't, I mean, I still find it hard to fathom why he was the only one that was so impressive and so much in a league of his own. I mean, that was simply like talking about it in Formula One terms, it was a bit like Mercedes of that time competing with the rest of the field, and that was Charles. He would score pole position at will,
yeah.
and he would carve through
I
the
would
field like
say,
anything.
yeah,
Such stunning drive.
there's a sort of theory I've got, and it's very weird, and I may be totally wrong. It's just a theory. Formula 2 cars, before Dallara and Mechachrome came over with their land-borne boats that have
2018
unreliable
only. Yeah.
engines. Yeah, 2018, the year that Formula 2 died. They had these fantastic cars, which were almost like, they were a lot more slim. You can dance with them a lot more. Guido van der Garde described them almost as rally cars because of how much you can work with them. And I always kind of regard Charles Leclerc being the modern day Gilles Villeneuve as a dude who's too crash prone and gives us all bloomin' heart attacks. But if you had to get someone to qualify your car one lap to blitz the field, yeah, Lewis is up
He's the
there,
guy.
but Lewis is, I don't know, like, something's missing from Lewis weirdly. For me, he's not someone. In terms of a race, I don't think there's anyone better. At least not until last year. Max is stonking, and a dude who is just like special, like Lewis is. But he wasn't altogether that strong in qualifying. It took him a long time to get a pole position. With Charles, there are so many times in qualifying where the commentators would see his name just shoot up the leaderboard, and it's just like, where did that come from? Like, 2020 sack, was it 2020? Was it 2020 sack here? I think it was, yeah.
Yeah.
Sack here.
Yeah, that particular race.
Where in Q3 he went up to P2, and Ferrari in 2020, oh boy, that was a dog of a car.
Garbage.
And they got
That
up
was
there,
a
and
garbage
Martin
car.
Brundle's like, where did that come from? It's just like, where did this guy
Exactly.
come from to take that damn thing on a track which was all straights and the Ferrari was very slow on the straights, and he got up to P2. What is this? And so like
Yeah.
he's a rapid driver, a very Gilles Villeneuve-esque driver, and Gilles Villeneuve was a dude who would hustle a car, make it dance and work with him. You could do that in a Formula 2 car, and you'll see some laps in F2 where it was very damn ragged, but he was getting the most out of it. And he was with Prema, the Ferrari links, just everything I think just worked in his favor to get him to this moment. Yeah, so it was just sort of the perfect storm almost, and it's just like that. If I become a billionaire, I'm buying that Formula 2 car of his, and I'm just just putting it on my wall. It's just like the most iconic F2 car for me, for sure. And then the 2018 car came along, and no one likes those cars. They're just rubbish to drive. The tires are awful. The damn engines are not nice most of the time, because most of the time they don't work. So I do miss those older cars, and I think it just worked in his favor. And there's something definitely Charles' season in 2017. It stands out. You could tell it was good, just beyond good. It was just sort of this like enjoy the moment.
I never got who is this driver? I mean, anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen. I think that was the particular season where I just wanted him to be sure, completely get and I'm a huge Kimi fan, but I had no issues with Leclerc replacing Kimi because he deserved it. This kid is special, and to be honest, even right now, if Leclerc is driving a Red Bull, I do feel he'll make much lesser mistakes than he does with the Ferrari, because in Ferrari you have to be on the ragged edge far too many times, and that does it's something that is going to make you crash prone if you are going to try for extravagant results, unless you can you can be content with being a P5 P6 consistently. Maybe you can opt for that, but Leclerc is not cut from that cloth. That is obvious. He'll always push to the max, and while it helps on a few times, it also works against him. This year it has been working against him more often than not. But yes, I think overall, when the car gets better, when it is a championship contending car, I think Leclerc will be right up there with Max. I have no doubt about it, and probably be a better qualifier than Max. Maybe needs a bit more maturing to do in the races. At least in qualifying, I think he can be right up there, or maybe even better.
Yeah, I mean, once you get that first championship, it makes you into a different driver. I mean, Max was always rapid. Max was always just special.
Yeah.
But once he got that first championship, you just notice it's like, this guy's almost bulletproof now. Like, how do you beat him? It's like, it's like
he changed.
If you put Lewis,
I think if Max off
in a top car, like you can't beat that. Like that's the thing. It's like we're just in an unfortunate situation where you got Max Verstappen in a dominant car. That's just not beatable. It's like it was with Lewis and Merck. It's just like you can't beat that.
Yeah,
it's just like
exactly.
It is unfortunate.
You don't.
But if
the
shittiest
thing about
championship, oh my god! Like you talk about the battles. We've seen battles with Max and Charles. They don't pun each other off, but they'll bang wheels, and it's just the most entertaining thing of all time. I want to see that. And now that Freddie's in
and
there,
they don't whine. What I love about it is what I truly love about it is they don't whine about it. They are happy. They're happy hard racers. They raced hard even last season in Saudi, in Bahrain as well. It wasn't as if that the two were complaining, he banged my wheel, he did this or that. It was all fun. The two were having fun, and you need that kind of healthy rivalry. And I miss that. I mean, honestly, for me as a fan, these years of Max just running up front and driving a car that is not even in the league of any other driver on the grid, these years are wasted. For me, I'd rather watch him battling in a similar car against Lewis, against Alonso, against Charles, Russell, Norris. I mean, that's what I want to see, because that's where his true talent will shine. Right now, he's just cruising. He's in cruise control. And yeah, as a fan, it's a loss for us, to be honest. The kind of talent that he has,
Yeah,
especially
absolutely.
with him consistently talking about retiring. I mean, yeah, wow, we actually went quite, we went on a tangent there. Coming back,
We just
the
totally
second
forgot
Ferrari
about
driver, by the
Carlos
way.
Sainz. It's almost as though we're actually in a race weekend
Yeah.
again. It's just like oh yeah, Carlos Sainz. Oh, he's here as well.
Oh, we have Carlos as well. You know, that's the fate of the second Ferrari driver most of the times. So, and nothing new there. So yes, coming back to Carlos, which particular race will you pick? The one that stands out for you?
2019 Abu Dhabi. It's just that last lap pass was
Oh,
just
uh,
insane to secure
on Hulkenberg.
McLaren some very good constructors points.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
his
it was
team
2019
radio.
because that
You
was the
see
year
that?
that
You see
he
that?
left. Yes, that was stunning for sure. I mean, people will say, "Oh, he's done some great stuff since he's come to Ferrari." It's just like, no, maybe you see it, but like, I don't know. I don't want to. I don't want to talk about 2021 Silverstone. For me, that was when Mattia Binotto became full on Benedict Arnold. Like, I don't.
2022.
I am
You're
still
saying
full
2022, right?
salt, and actually, I will be full salt again. Okay, 2021 British Grand Prix. Sainz getting his first win. Not the most memorable part of it. That race for
2022.
me.
That's
The
2022.
thing that I always take.
Josh,
Yeah,
that's
2022.
2022.
Sorry, so I'm getting my years mixed up. Once you start getting to an age where there's
2021
now double
British Grand
bags
Prix
under
was.
your eyes, you wish that the time goes back. Yeah, so 2022 British Grand Prix,
I
not
agree.
the thing I take most out of it being Sainz win. The thing that I loved most out of that race, Charles's pass on Lewis on the outside of Cops on old hard tires. Like,
That
it was 3
yeah.
a.m. or whatever it was in my household, but I was just like, what the hell? How do you do that?
Exactly.
That is ultra insane. But yeah, Sainz 2019 Abu Dhabi.
Yeah. I mean, that last sequence of battle between Charles, Perez, and Lewis. I mean, they keep talking about that through goes Hamilton thing as being the moment. I mean, come on, just wait for the next few sequence where ultimately Charles retakes that position. It was stunning. It was so stunning. I mean, I remember those 5-6 laps. I was just standing. I was standing and watching the TV screen. I was like, what the hell is going on? How is he defending like this? Because there's no chance. I gave him zero. There was just a zero possibility of him fending off either of those drivers. But still, he raced them hard and fair. So beautiful, so beautiful. And till date, I mean, there are a few races where there are a few parts of races where I tend to clip them and keep them when I try to watch them when I'm cycling or something, because they get your adrenaline high. And that was a particular one. I still remember that, and one of the more memorable sequence of racing that we've seen. And again, we don't see that often, that kind of racing, that wheel to wheel action. That's what makes Formula One what it is right now. Such stunning. And again, we forgot about the second Ferrari driver, Carlos Sainz. Now, in my view, when it comes to Carlos Sainz, it's before his Ferrari days. It was the race in Singapore, 2017, before he even joined Renault. He drove for Toro Rosso,
Yeah.
the Singapore Grand Prix, 2017,
He got fourth, didn't he?
Yes,
Did he get
exactly.
fourth in that race?
He got fourth in that race.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, what stands out for me was the car was okay. It wasn't that competitive, but keeping his head in that particular race where everyone wanted to just crash or fall off. I mean, that was the race with the infamous crash between Kimi, Seb, and Max at the start, and Lewis winning.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, changed the whole complexion of the championship. But this particular drive, it tends to stand out for me because that paved the way for him to move to Renault, and then from Renault to ultimately McLaren and then Ferrari, even though he had a pretty shitty period in Renault as well. So yeah, that is the one that stands out for me, to be honest, because I didn't rate Sainz very highly until then, because Max kind of overshadowed him. Then with him teaming up with Daniel Kvyat, it wasn't. I don't know if it was Sainz being good or Kvyat not recovering from the mental strain of what had happened with him. So when you add all of that and then you have this particular race, I mean, that's where he kind of proved himself to me that, okay, I don't think he's a Max Verstappen, but he's still good enough to, score strong results when the opportunity presents itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, this one particularly stands out.